Hello, that's me again. Today is May 28th, 2025. I don't remember what day of the week is. I live in my own alternative universe of the days of the week. That is why sometimes I completely misspell or misspeak, if you wish, about my days of the week. I believe it is Wednesday today. So, and let's start with the thing which I'm pretty sure you all have been waiting for me to comment on, and I know it's funny and we are into this media circus, and I need to obviously comment on that because, well, it's understandable. People need to hear their opinion. And so we'll start with the issue of Trump's statements, okay? And you know what statement I'm talking about that he can prevent, Russia from doing this and that in Ukraine, that he calls Putin crazy or going crazy. So this is the second time Mr. Trump insults actually foreign country. And when you look attentively at his reactions, these are not reactions of the, well, let's put it this way, competent man. But, well, pretty much we knew it all along. And let me explain what the problem really is. And especially with the problem with Mr. Kellogg. Keith Kellogg, despite the fact that he is a general, he's an American general. That means he doesn't understand the first thing about modern war, and he will not even understand the situation on the ground. And especially when he gets it from the propaganda from, Kiev regime. He loves to go to Kiev and talk to Zelensky. So as you may understand, being man of a very low qualifications, professional qualifications, as being the American general, he doesn't understand what he's looking at as being absolutely, BS. But it's not only that. He's a sore loser who never won anything in his life. He commanded some kind of division there, but you know what? He is not in the same league as Russian military. Let's be very open about it. I mean, he won't probably even pass the entrance exams to Russian military academy. And as the result, he wants to be in the tool of some, as always, the chaotic Trump administration, which has a bunch of neocons and warmongers on board, so to speak, including those, gung-hos from the Capitol Hill who love to kill more Russians. So as the result, we have two statements from top Russian officials which tell you everything you need to know. And here it is. First, we have Mr. Ushakov. He is the first aide to Vladimir Putin. And he speaks today. Trump is underinformed on Ukrainian strikes against Russian civilians, top Putin's aide talks about. He speaks in this particular case specifically on the event of Ukraine launching constantly all those drones on the civilian targets. And so he talks about US President Donald Trump is apparently unaware of the Ukrainian terrorist attacks on Russian civilians that prompted retaliation from Moscow. Yuri Ushakov, a top foreign policy advisor to Russian President Vladimir Putin, has suggested. Trump has rebuked Moscow, we know this. He talks about Putin, who has gone absolutely crazy and fired missiles and drones into the cities of Ukraine for no reason whatsoever. Later he wants that his Russian counterpart is playing with fire. Well, look at this. Suddenly Kellogg goes out regarding, the fire thing, and oh my God, why did he go about this way? Well, US President Donald Trump speaking about the fact that Russian leadership is playing with fire in the light of recent actions in Ukraine meant the preservation of the personal relations, said the special envoy of the American leader Keith Kellogg. I think the fire about which Trump says is a personal relation. I never read any larger BS than that. No, Trump is being a narcissist and self-centered as he is. He thinks that he controls the universe. And he wants Russia. And he's got nothing to do with the personal relationship. Because President Trump really values personal relationships. No, he doesn't. Ask General Michael Flynn and other people he threw under the bus. Said Kellogg in an interview with Fox News. According to him, Trump has excellent instincts that he relies on. I mean, it's laughable, but suddenly, for some reason, Mr. Kellogg decided to, go and comment on Mr. Trump's, basically not job, expression of the anger. That's who he is. He lashes out and he doesn't understand what he's talking about. But of course, Mr. Medvedev, Mr. Medvedev is very well. Mr. Medvedev doesn't hold words, so to speak, and he's talking about playing with fire, and he's told that regarding Trump's words about Putin playing with fire and really bad things happening to Russia. Yes, that's the key thing. I only know one really bad thing, World War III. I hope Trump understands this. Not necessarily, but Kellogg suddenly decided to interject himself here. This nincompoop, the guy is a pipsqueak. He is a loser. He has no qualifications militarily or diplomatically speaking, but he is special envoy of Trump. And so he talks about Trump Ukraine envoy condemns Medvedev reckless World War III comment. Well, no, there's nothing reckless about it, and this is the only language people like this Kellogg dude understand. And so, stoking fears of World War III is an unfortunate reckless comment by Medvedev, an unfitting of the world power, Kellogg wrote on X on Wednesday. Really? He added President Trump is working to stop this war and end the killing. No, he is not. He is working to get the best thing for United States to avoid what we already know. Everybody knows it. That United States lost the war and is humiliated badly. If it continues on this way, it will be really bad. Kellogg said that the U.S. awaiting Russia's submission of a memorandum outlining its terms for a ceasefire as agreed during the first direct Russia-Ukraine talks in 3 years, held in Istanbul. Okay, fine. But here comes after that, all that, apart from Ushakov, the latest. We have Mr. Lavrov. That's the real heavyweight, okay? And this is like really serious. And he talks about this too. Trump getting filtered information on Ukraine conflict. The US president is not being briefed properly about the ongoing situation. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has said just recently, a few hours ago, US President Donald Trump is being misled about the Ukraine conflict by those pushing Washington towards supporting the Kyiv regime and taking a more aggressive stance on Russia. That's Lavrov's words. And those carry a lot of weight. And I mean a lot of weight. And Moscow is fully aware that people like Kellogg and a bunch of neocons and all kinds of those primarily political operatives, and of course very many of those people on Capitol Hill, they do mislead Trump. Trump is not capable to get this out of this situation because first he's narcissist, he thinks that he knows it all, which he does not, and of course look what even 90 years ago one of the strategists, which, for example, current chief of the general staff of Russian defense ministry, Mr. Gerasimov, loves to quote. Here's what Mr. Svechin, in his fundamental work strategy, wrote about 90 years ago. It applies today as never before. It is valid, and actually I would add even more to this list. And here what he states. Here's his requirement. This is, I quote, this is from my book, but you can go and get his book, Strategy. Fact is, I believe you can download it for free. I strongly suggest you to read it. Not all of it, of course, up to date by this is absolutely spot on. Svechin lays out general requirements for those people, statesmen or generally politicians of high level, which are as crucial and important today as they have been 100 years ago. The first duty of the art of politics with respect to strategy is to formulate the political goal of a war. This is the thing which United States simply is incapable of doing. It's basically inherent in the political system which as it exists today. And so Svechin continues. Any goal should be strictly coordinated with the resources available to achieve it. The political goal should be appropriate to one's war-waging capabilities. Yeah, we have issues here with NATO and United States. To meet this requirement, a politician must have a correct conception of the relations of friendly to hostile forces. The thing which I preach, which is of course today, is called correlation of forces and means, and it requires at least some basic math going into this. And so, which requires extremely mature and profound judgment and knowledge of the history, politics, and statistics of both hostile states, and a certain amount of competence in basic military matters. And here it is. The final statement of the goal would be made by the politician after an appropriate exchange of views with strategists, and it should help rather than hinder strategic decisions. It's difficult to really add much to it. Except for the, of course, you need to understand, apart from the correlation of forces and means, you need to understand the technological paradigm of the modern war, which is high-tech, extremely, so to speak, intensive in terms of the even new physical principles, if you wish. You need to have this understanding. Mr. Trump doesn't have those understandings. He simply is incapable to grasp what is being presented to him. And when we talk about strategists, show me any strategist, with the exception of Colonel Douglas MacGregor, of note in the United States, which came about in the last, 30, 40, 50 years? I don't know anyone. I mean, all those people who went under the moniker of strategist or, existed in the United States, let alone the nincompoops like Henry Kissinger, genocidal guy, and of course Mr. Brzezinski, they're not strategists. They never have been. They have been ideologues and self-promoters. But if you take a look at anybody who can try to tie together at least military and politics, I mean, most of those strategists, actually, they do exist in the United States, but they are not allowed anywhere near the levels of power, as much as I disagree with Colonel Douglas MacGregor dramatically on his understanding of the World War II and the Soviet Union and Russian history. He is correct in many respects. Regarding today's situation currently, you will see the video or my video with Colonel Daniel Davis. Also, he's a strategist. There are many people. Larry Johnson is a strategist. And we continue to talk about it that, yeah, those people are smart. They understand things. Ray McGovern is the strategist. But well, some people call me a strategist. Well, yeah, I do write on strategy. I do express my opinions, and I try to do it based on a lot of books and sources. That is why people say, oh my God, you have so much, bibliography in your book. So of course I'm supposed to. I have to present the situation as it is seen from different angles. That's why many people do not understand that when I actually call somebody nincompoop or moron, I mean it, because I did my work, they didn't. And it's simple as that. And as the result, what do we have? Well, we have what Mr. Svechin essentially described, and which United States top political level absolutely doesn't have. America doesn't exist. United States doesn't exist. Strategic intelligence as such, they do not understand what it is. They have a lot of tools they describe as the strategic thinking, strategic analysis, and strategic forecasting. Show me single strategic forecast which panned out by the United States leading institutions and think tanks in the last 30 years. None. Zilch. None of them actually have panned out, and this is precisely because there are no competent people working on the top, highest level of power, and as the result, yeah, Mr. Trump believes that Russians lost, 170 million people, in the last day, 24 hours. He believes that Russian economy is about to collapse, and things like of this nature. You cannot change it. In the depth to which this stupidity and ignorance run is incredible. It starts, sadly, from the educational system in the United States and in the West, and then projects itself into those degree meals which are created for the good old boys and girls to get easy, soft degrees in sociology, in political science, or whatever the hell they journalism, let alone, which is not even a profession. So, and when you look at this, then suddenly you see to yourself that, well, Mr. Svechin had a point, right? And that's not the only strategist, obviously. Here's the real consequential strategist from Russian side again. This is Mr. Naryshkin. Well, who is Mr. Naryshkin? Mr. Naryshkin is the chief of the Foreign Intelligence Service, SVR, and he basically sums up it extremely well. And Russia cannot afford to be weak. Addressing the attendees of the International Security Conference in Moscow on Wednesday, Naryshkin said that Russia has no right to be weak, to abandon its own values and pursue the chimera of totalitarian liberalism and globalism. According to Naryshkin, history teaches us that the security on the Eurasian continent and ultimately the whole world depends on Russia's firm standing. I totally agree with him. And even among those Russophobic or, hating Russian gods people, you begin to hear that, well, yeah, we admit Russia is a global power. Yeah, it always was. It's just that essentially, after the collapse of the Soviet Union and horrendous economic difficulties which were inspired by the idiotic liberal economic ideas in Russia, which Russian people had to endure. One of the reasons why I ended up in the United States, for example, and what Mr. Putin defined as the actually civil war, which it was. Russia's recovered, and actually, if you ask me, Russian economy is much larger than that of the Soviet Union when you get an adjustment for the time. It's horrendously larger, and it's not about just producing some kind of the quantities of something. It is the quality of this economy which is absolutely incredible. When you look today at the industrial news from Russia, and not related to even the military, although any technologists today, practically every technologist today, they are related one way or another to military. But if you look attentively at that, they just say, wow, this is amazing. You won't believe the velocity, so to speak, or rate at which Russia's industrial and machine building complex grows. It is insane. By different estimates, it might be upward of 10%. While Vladimir Putin, speaking yesterday to business people, he pointed out that Russia's growth is, 4.3% annual altogether. Not bad for the economy which is sanctioned and which, as many people, and you can go and take a look at my conversation with Daniel Davis just recently, for a country which is completely under sanctions. But again, you cannot explain this to people. You just can't. And here is one of the strategists, one of my most favorite people, of course, and one of the who should be the pride of the British people. Mr. Alistair Crooke, the embodiment of the British gentleman and intelligence person and analyst and just overall just awesome guy. He published, let me see, it was just recently, yesterday, the article which in the Strategic Culture Foundation. And he is talking about the Hector is tricked into the combat and killed beneath Troy's city walls. Trump might well hit the moral to the Iliad story. And here is what Mr. Crooke writes, which is critical of understanding and why people say, I'm not gonna lie, I know people, some say, oh, you are Cassandra. I'm not Cassandra. It's very easy to predict what is happening when you know the nature of the conflict, by the way, which also Mr. Svechin wrote non-stop, repeated by Mr. Gerasimov. You have to understand the nature of the conflict, the nature of the war. And here is Mr. Crooke says, read attentively, this is amazing, this is critical. He talks about that the real action in the US, when he's talking about US, which is really matters in terms of the combined West, Europe doesn't anymore, is not happening in seminars at Brookings or in op-eds in the New York Times. It is happening backstage, out of sight, beyond the reach of polite society, and mostly off script. America is undergoing a transformation more akin to what befell Rome in the age of Augustus. Well, the collapse of global liberalism intellectual paradigm. its delusions, together with its associated technocratic structure of governance, transcends red-blue schism in the West. I absolutely agree. In fact, is essentially the so-called MAGA crowd and the crowd of the woke, insane nut jobs. They are, in many respects, while certainly pursuing different general political outward aims, they are essentially manifestations of the same thing, of the what is called liberalism, and some people call it neoliberalism. And here it is. Here what he talks about. He talks about the situation of the economy, let alone the military. It's a separate story. But for 30 years, Wall Street sold a fantasy. And that illusion just shattered. Absolutely, it shattered. Frankly put, liberal elites simply have demonstrated that they are not competent of professional in matters of governance. Well, my thesis, which I repeat non-stop for more than 10 years now, that the United States is ungovernable. And they do not understand the gravity of the situation they face, which is that the financial architecture that used to produce easy solution and effortless prosperity is well past its sell-by date. It is essentially, I speak constantly, it doesn't matter how much money you print. The more you print the money, the less it buys. That is why you can print $2 trillion for Pentagon. The system itself is not designed to produce any really positive, effective outcome. I mean, Russians are openly already laughing at this golden dome thing, but that's a whole other technological issue. But Mr. Crooke is relentless, and he is absolutely correct. So this is what he says. The lesson here, when a state becomes incompetent, yes, this is what it is. The combined West has become incompetent. Someone eventually rises to govern it, not by consensus, but coercion. One historical cure for such political sclerosis is not dialogue or compromise. It is what Romans called proscription, a formalized purge. So, and this is what he says about cultural critic Walter Kern. He quotes him. Americans, they are going to want less concern for the philosophical and or even long-term political questions of equity and so on. I predict, and they are going to want to lay in a minimum expectations of competence. In other words, this is a time when the priorities shift. What does Brussels make of all this? Absolutely nothing. The EU technocracy is still entranced by the America of the Obama years, which tells you essentially the lack of any intellectual power in them. A land of soft power, identity politics, and cosmopolitan neoliberal capitalism. They hope and expect that Trump's influence will be expunged in next year midterm congressional elections. This is how incompetent people think. They really think that everything is decided into the utterly corrupt. I mean, it's just the level of the corruption is insane in this political process, and then somebody who will choose, one devil over another. It's yeah, there are no good options, and they are all incompetent. If you listen attentively what Trump says, or you listen attentively what even J.D. Vance says, or all of them, let alone whatever the garbage basically the Western media are, not that the Russian are much better, but still. And look at this is kindergarten, guys, literally. You have people with the PhDs in something who come out and begin to spew such BS that one has to absolutely stay stunned by the fact that, yeah, the reason West is ungovernable because there are no competent people in power anymore. And again, I want to, let you go back to, for example, not only my talk to Daniel Davis today, but go and listen to what Larry Johnson spoke with Judge Napolitano yesterday. And many others speak about it. How can you get out of this? Can you imagine being a patient with the heart attack and you can be saved? So they cut out your chest, cut chest open, pardon me, and begin to perform open heart surgery, and then in the middle of it you recognize that the surgeon who does it, he's not really a surgeon, and he doesn't know what he's doing, and the anesthesiologist doesn't know what he's doing, and the rest of this, and maybe a couple of nurses have an idea, but they are absolutely terrified by what they observe, and they cannot tell the surgeon, just get the hell out of here, you're killing the guy, or whatever, whoever is on the operational table. But this is exactly the case. And as the result, well, doesn't matter what Trump says, he cannot do anything. United States cannot do anything. United States military turned out to be, with the exception of the Navy, a paper tiger, which doesn't have any kind of good level of the combat readiness. And if this hasn't been enough, here is the new phenomenon. New York Times suddenly publishes a large material on this. And this is like, wow, yeah, hey, look at this, man. So, and this is about Americans dressing as Russians and Ukrainians. Look at this. Why Americans are dressing like Russian troops in Oklahoma. Look at this. They even wear the not only Russian badges, and they wear the, here is the Novorossiya, here's the Novorossiya flag, which is of course St. Andrew's flag, but it also kind of looks like the Confederate flag, but it's all Russian. Look at them. They wear Russian badges. They just, AK, all kinds of the versions of AK. And in the US, the reenactment of historical battles has long been a niche hobby. But fake battles that echo an ongoing war are a relatively recent phenomenon. Well, I can tell you one thing. These guys obviously do not buy this BS. And this is what is happening, which is absolutely terrifying for these cretins from Hollywood and American media. Actually, many people go on YouTube and they ignore all those fanboys who shill for NATO and genocidal Nazi regime of Ukraine, and they begin to learn, they want to learn how Russians fight this whole thing. They are not idiots, they know Russians already essentially won the war, and so they reenact it. They, of course, as you might understand, this is not real military training, but it is indicative to such a degree that, well, okay, let me tell you a horrible thing. It's not a secret anymore. Russian armed forces are cool. Many people look at them, they look how they dressed, how they operate. Look at the operations of Russian stormtroopers. Good luck repeating that. This is not just actually the exhibition of the highest level professionalism. It's the exhibition of the unbelievable courage. And yeah, you have like 3, 4, which is the link, so to speak, of the Russian stormtroopers, sometimes fighting 30 of the Ukrainians. And they win. They take the strong points and all kinds of other tactical points which are required to take before you move forward. And if you take a look attentively at a map today, before we go to the map though, we can go here. As you can see yourself, it was yesterday. Yeah, they launch all kinds of drones, primarily on the civilian targets, as you can see yourself. But yeah, we are back to pretty much same tally a day, which is 1,500. And then we have the situation which is developing really fast in Zaporozhye. Zaporozhye was, holding kind of steady and calm, but as of recently, their activity they increased dramatically, and then we have now the situation which our Russians fully control the N07 highway, or whatever passes for highway in Ukraine, on the way to Sumy, the city of Sumy. Russians are deep into Sumy region, and you have the Kharkov, and you have Dnipropetrovsk, and yeah, that is why so much actually hysteria and desperation. And obviously, but we know that Trump is being manipulated, and maybe even if he wouldn't have been manipulated, I doubt he can accept the fact that the United States cannot do a thing about it. And Russians, being polite diplomatically, they continue to do what they set out to do. They will address the root causes of the special military operations. And this is how much is told today by top Russian officials. And this is the end of the world as we know it, or as we knew it, as Mr. Alistair Crooke correctly pointed out in his wonderful piece in Strategic Culture Foundation. They do not even understand. It's not solved on the level of the political theater in the combined West. It is solved behind the curtains, some off-stage position, so to speak. And there Russians speak broadsides, and they literally challenge. Well, Kellogg, they don't talk to Kellogg. Nobody in Russia will talk to Kellogg. And when you put this together, you understand that, well, Mr. Alistair Crooke is correct, as were many of those real strategists, and I named them, which are correct about the whole situation with the combined West. It is over. And this is what I wanted to tell you guys today. And as always, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. And also can afford, please support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee too. And that will be it for today, guys. Have a nice rest of the week, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.